course, today we will have 7 topics and you will know these topics gradually in the latter part. Subject-verb agreement. Subjects and verbs must agree with one another in number. Either it's singular or plural. Hence, if a subject is singular, its verb must also in singular form. And if the subject is plural, its verb must in plural in form. Take note that in present tense, nouns and verbs have opposite ways in forming plurals. When we talk about noun, we must add s to a singular form. Meanwhile, when it comes to verb, we must move the s from the singular form. Just like, for example, the pony drinks the water, and another is the ponies drink the water. As you can see in the first sentence, it shows that the noun is singular and consequently it is followed with a singular form which is drinks. On the second sentence, it displays a plural noun that resulted in adding s or ies to the noun, while its verb we remove s. First rule of subject-verb agreement is a phrase or clause between subject and verb does not change the number of the subject. This rule means that whatever and wherever the phrase or clause is, it has nothing to do with the subject and the verb. For example, the birds over the tree are chirping. The verb are agrees with the subject birds and does not agree with the tree. Second rule is indefinite pronouns as subject. So in this rule, indefinite pronouns will play a subject. Indefinite pronoun is a pronoun which does not have a specific familiar referent. It can represent either count nouns or non-count nouns. Also, this rule has its own conditions. First condition, singular indefinite pronoun subject must take singular verb. So here are some indefinite pronouns singular. Each either one, no one, nobody, nothing, anyone, anybody, anything. So these are just few of singular indefinite pronouns. For example, someone does the role of being a piglet. So someone is a singular indefinite pronoun that is agreed with its verb does. Plural indefinite pronoun subjects takes plural verb. If its indefinite pronoun subject is plural, it must agree with a plural verb. Examples of plural indefinite pronouns are several, few, many. Example, several have passed the midterm assessment. So several is a plural subject and have is a plural verb. So we are down to its last condition, which states that indefinite pronouns may either be singular or plural. So if it's uncountable nouns, use singular verb, and in countable nouns, use plural verb. So examples of indefinite pronoun which can be either singular or plural: some, none, most, and all. So for example, none of the water was put into waste. So water is uncountable nouns, so it must use a singular verb. So just like none of the water was put into waste. So water is uncountable nouns and it is paired with singular verb. Alright, so another example is most of the bottles are worth recycling. So basically, we can count bottles. So therefore, the subject must take a plural verb. So we are in the third rule, which is compound subjects joined by and are always in plural. So compound subject are two subjects put together in order to create a compound subjects through a conjunction and. So whenever you will encounter this kind of subjects in a sentence, always remember that it must take a plural form of verb. For example, Rio and Redoble have their breakfast at school. So Rio and Redoble is a compound subject, so it must have a plural verb, which is have. Fourth rule. With compound subjects joined by or nor, the verbs agrees with the subject near to it. So this rule states that if ever a compound subjects are put together with a conjunction or nor, the verb must agree based on the subject near to it. For instance, neither Dorian nor Marang seems disgusting to my eyes. So Marang is a singular verb, so it must be agreed by a singular verb, which is Mara. The fifth rule is inverted subjects must agree with the verbs. So inverted subjects are the subjects where it interchanges with the position of the verb. In other words, this rule implies that inversion occurs between the subject and the verb, wherein they switch their canonical order of appearance, and it must also agree with its verb. For example, excuse me, officer, there is an accident in the North Avenue. So instead of the subject comes first after this verb, here in inverted subjects is the verb precedes the sentence rather than the subject. So is the verb which comes first and after with the verb. Sixth rule. Collective noun may be used as singular or plural depending on the meaning. Collective noun is a collection of things taken as a whole. For example, the Alpha Battalion has rendered their service to the nation. So Alpha Battalion there act as one unit. So therefore, its verb must in singular form, which is has. Another example is the Alpha Battalion cadets have rendered their service to the nation. So Alpha Battalion cadets or Alpha Battalion has 76 individuals. So meaning they are many. It is plural. So the verb must in plural form. That is why it is have. Next rule is titles of single entities like books, organizations, countries, and etc. are always in a single form. Just like, for example, Massachusetts is my second home. So Massachusetts is a name of country. It may be plural in form, but still it is a single entity resulting to its verb to be also in singular form. Eighth rule, plural form subjects. So just like the rule number 2, it also compromise or constitutes two conditions. So first, if a plural form subjects with a singular meaning takes a singular verb, for instance, news, missiles, mumps, physics, and so on. It simply means that even though the subject is written in a plural form, yet has a singular meaning, it must take a singular verb. Just like, for example, listening to the news is very significant in today's era since it enables us to keep updated on the situation of the world. So the news there is a singular subject, though it is written in a plural form, still its meaning is contained with a singular meanings. So it must be compromised with its verb is. Another sub-rule is when plural form subjects obtain plural meaning in it take a singular or plural verb depending on the meaning. It implies that even the subject is in plural form with a plural meaning, it should always depend on the meaning whether it takes a singular or plural verb. So first, or example, economics is the hardest subject I ever encountered. So economics there act as a singular subject, therefore it must take a singular verb. With a subject and subject complement of different number, the verb always agrees with the subject. For an instance, the dog is my pet. So singular now a subject, which is dog, and singular verb, which is. So another is my pets are dogs. So pets are plural and are is a verb which is also plural. 10th rule. When using one of those who, it must coincide with a plural verb. Just like John is one of those who want to play football. So aside from John, many of them want to play football. Therefore, in order to be grammatically correct, the verb must be plural in form. When using the only one of those who, it must coincide with a singular form of verb. Just like John is the only one of those who wants to play football. So it infers that no other than John has the interest to play football. Therefore, the verb must be singular to conform its subject. 11th rule. When using the number of, use a singular form of verb. So for example, the number of youths grows more than last year. So the number of, we must use the singular form of verb. So that resulted to us to use grows as a singular form of verb to compromise with the number of, because we use the number of. So another is when using a number of, use plural form of verb. A number of farmers have problem on their farm. So a number of farmers. So it must be plural form of verb because we use a number. But if we will use the number, so there we will use a singular form of verb. We are down with our last rule. When using every and many use a singular verb. So example, every cat and dog eats meat. So even though there are two compound subjects, but it is precede with every, still we will use a singular form of verb. Another example is many a lady likes to marry a doesn't man. So although a lady is a plural, but it is presides with many, so we must use the singular verb. So now let's proceed to sentence structure. Sentence structure refers to the physical nature of sentence and the elements of the sentence presented. It involves punctuations, phrases, clauses, word choice, and many more. These elements are vital to have and create an efficient and interesting literary. Sentence structure has four categories, namely simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, and compound complex sentence. So let's know these four gradually. First, simple sentence. This kind of sentence is composed with the subject, verb, and may also have object and modifiers. However, it has only one independent clause. For example, she dances with the music of the wind. So, she is the subject, dances is the verb, with the music is the object, and of the wind is the prepositional phrase. Second is compound sentence. This type of sentence is comprised of at least two independent clauses. These clauses can be put together through comma and a coordinating conjunction or with a semicolon. For example, Ben decided to engage in sport and he changed his lifestyle. So there are two independent clauses in the sentence, which is Ben decided to engage in sport and he changed his lifestyle. So he changed his lifestyle is another independent clause, and it is put together by a semicolon and the coordinating conjunction, which is and. Next is complex sentence. So this sentence is structured of at least one independent clause and dependent clause. Dependent clause can refer to the subject, who or which, the time, since, while, or the casual elements of because, if, of independent clause. Take note that if a sentence starts with a dependent clause, it must be followed by a comma. On the other side, if it precedes with an independent clause, comma is unnecessary in separating the two sentences. For example, they made sacrifice, but it was not enough for her to keep alive. So the independent clause is they made sacrifice, and it is put together by a coordinating conjunction, and the independent clause is it was not enough for her to keep alive. The last category is compound complex sentence. This kind of sentence is composed of at least two independent clauses and at least one dependent clause. So, for example, despite from what they've been through, they're still committed to serve the people and they planned to have more activities in the future. So the dependent clause there is despite from
what they've been through, and the two independent clauses are they're still committed to serve the people, and they planned to have more activities in the future. And with the aid of comma and the coordinating conjunction and, the sentences were interconnected with each other. So we are done with the sentence structure. Now let's proceed to fragments.
So, fragments are incomplete sentences. Commonly, these are sections of sentences that have become disconnected from the main clause. It infers that these sentences cannot stand alone for the reason that it causes fragmented sentences to be the next sentence in order for it to have a complete thought. So ideally, this kind of sentence makes the reader wonder on what happened or what will happen next. In addition, it is grammatically wrong wherein you tend to put punctuations after the sentence, although it doesn't obtain a complete thought. For example, because of the pandemic. So, what do you think is the complete thought there? Or you will wonder what will happen or what happened because of the pandemic, right? So, obviously, it doesn't contain a complete thought. But gratefully, there are 3 tips or way in order to fix these fragmented sentences. So, first, attached. So, attach the fragment to nearby complete sentences. Alright, so, on a rainy day, I jog all day. So, as you can see that on the rainy Sunday period, I jog all day. So, on a rainy Sunday, so there is no complete thought, but still it has a period after the Sunday. So, in order to correct that, we need to connect the two. For example, on a rainy day, I jog all day. So, we must put the period after the day. Do you get it? Alright. Second is revise. So, revise the fragmented sentences by adding whatever is missing, whether it is a subject, a verb, or a complete thought. For example, plays video games every other day. So the sentence is lacking with a subject. So who is playing video games every other day? So it cannot answer the question who. So the reader left hanging. So in order to correct this, we must supply the lacking element on the sentence. So let's just say Santi plays video games every other day. Alright, so last tip is we write the fragment or the entire passage that contains a fragment. So, for example, on a beautiful Friday, commemorating the memorable events of mine, such as being a student, hanging out with friends, late night talk, I shed tears while laughing. So, that sentence is fragmented sentence. So let's correct it. On a beautiful Friday, I was commemorating the memorable events of mine, such as being a student, hanging out of friends, and late night talks. So after which I shed tears while laughing. So there it is already grammatically correct and is pleasing to hear. Alright, so for you to understand or distinguish the sentence fragment, remember the following. If ever you will encounter one of these, you can just correct it by applying the given tips above. So these are the distinguishing features of a sentence fragment. It is, first, it is missing a subject. Second, it is missing a verb or has the wrong verb form. Another, it is a leftover phrase. Fourth is, it is an abandoned clause. And the last one is, it is a misuse of such as, for example, especially, and many more. So, those are the 5 distinguishing features of sentence fragments. Although sentence fragments is sometimes grammatically wrong, still it is acceptable to use when the intentions are clear. It addresses that as long as a vivid and understandable thought is agreeable. Fragments are usually in poetry and haiku. Also, a frequent use of sentence fragments are done by many, such as advertising agency and copyrights in order to have an appealing show. In addition, it lends a conversational one and makes the message more personal and less formal. So that is fragments. So let's move on to run-ons. So what is run-ons? Run-ons are the 2 independent clauses that are joined together in one sentence without the proper punctuation mark. Commonly, this kind of sentence emerges when the right punctuations were applied no longer. Example, I want to unwind in the wilderness. I like to bring my close friends. Obviously, there are 2 independent clauses in one sentence. First independent clause, I want to unwind in the wilderness. Second is, I like to bring my close friends. So normally, we can find a run-on sentence once there is another independent clause within just one sentence, which is deprived of having a proper punctuation. So whenever you can encounter that kind of sentence or run-ons, there are 2 or more subjects, just like it answers who or what the sentence is about. And its pronouns joined in the same sentence where punctuations are not properly observed. Then you can say that is a run-on sentence. On the contrary, in correcting run-on sentence, we must be cautious enough since it will lead us to another error again if we will be careless. Usually it will result to a comma splice. So what is a comma splice? Comma splice is an error wherein it causes a single comma in order to isolate the 2 independent clauses. Typically, this occurs when a writer attempts to use transitional expressions in the middle of a sentence. Example, he failed on his exams, hence he needs to study hard to have higher marks. So the sentence 1, he failed on his exams. The transitional expression is hence. And sentence 2 is he needs to study hard to have a high remarks. So, in order to correct this mistake, we must use a semicolon before the transitional expression and adding a comma after the transitional expression is more appropriate. So, here is the revision. He failed on his exams, hence he needs to study hard to have high remarks. So, obviously, we can see that after the examination, there is a semicolon, and after the transitional expression, there is a comma. So take note that a run-on sentence cannot be fixed with just a single comma. Alright, so there are varieties of ways to correct a run-on sentence, and they are as follows. First, use a period. The easiest way to fix run-on sentences into shorter sentence is to use a period. This works best with longer sentences. So for example, I danced hip-hop. I love to sing original Pinoy music. So in the first sentence, we can see that the period or the punctuation mark is after the music, which is not grammatically correct. So let's revise it in order for the sentence to be grammatically correct. So I dance hip-hop, period. I love original Pinoy music, or I love to sing original Pinoy music. So there we can see that it is already grammatically correct. Second way is the use of semicolon to detach the two independent clauses. So inserting semicolon between the two independent clauses makes a sentence grammatically correct. It is an aesthetic choice that builds a close ties between the two sentences. So let's use the same example. I dance hip-hop with semicolon. I love to sing original Pinoy music, period. So that would be grammatically correct. Third, use comma and coordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions are the words that join the two elements of equal grammatical rank and syntactic importance. There are 7 coordinating conjunctions such as for, and, nor, but, yet, so, and, or. So these elements can aid in isolating the two independent clauses. So I dance hip-hop, but I would love to sing original Pinoy music. The fourth way is the use of subordinating conjunctions. So subordinating conjunctions are words or phrase that links an independent clause to an independent clause. These are the 12 subordinating conjunctions. After, once, while, until, before, so that, whereas, even if, that, wherever, even though, that, whether, if, though, and those are the 12 subordinating conjunction. In this tip, it can turn the run-on sentence into a complex sentence, which is the best option in order to have a better relationship with the two clauses. So the revision of the example, while applying this fourth tip, even though I usually danced hip-hop, but I would love to sing original Pinoy music. So, it is resulted to a complex sentence. Those are the tips that could help any writer to fit whenever you will encounter or to fix whenever you will encounter run-on sentences. Contrastingly, whatever you decide to revise a run-on sentence, mark it to your mind that maintaining sentence variety is a must and aids to keep the literary clear and catchy for the readers. So, let's move on to parallelism. So, this is the assimilation of linguistics as it has the characteristics of balancing the grammatical structure or even the phrases. In addition, the application of parallelism procures clarity and interest to the sentences. It also gives phrases a pattern and rhythm. In other words, parallelism is applied to preserve the balance and symmetry of grammatical structure that a sentence has. The continuance of this can lead to a likable, remarkable, and engaging literary piece. For example, eye for an eye, tooth for tooth. So eye is a noun, for is preposition, and tooth is also a noun, and for is a preposition. So observably, the sentence above follows the same structure, a parallel of nouns and prepositions. So ideally, a sentence is composed of noun, verb, adjective, and other parts of speech. However, in a parallelism, these parts of speech must be identical synthetically to maintain its balance and harmony. Thus, the symmetry of all elements must be identical at all. Through following and maintain the process of parallelism. Also, this structure encourages more accurate and correct in terms of grammar. So obviously, the example above achieve the parallelism or parallel structure. For example, for faulty parallelism,
Pops is into dancing,
singing, and acting. So to correct it, Pops is into dancing, singing, and acting. So it must be parallel. So whenever the sentence is written in a parallelism, it sounds more aesthetically pleasing because the structure is balanced. Also, it enables the reader to just focus on the maintaining point in the sentence and not the process itself. One more thing, in checking parallelism in a literary piece, just make sure that the elements are paired accordingly. Highlight each element appears in the sentence and checks the equivalent elements that uses the same grammatical form. So now let's tackle about misplaced and dangling modifier. So before that, let's define first what is a modifier. So modifier is a word, phrase, or clause that describes, defines, or qualifies something else in a sentence. However, there are most common modifier mistakes, namely misplaced and dangling modifiers. So these kinds of modifiers are connected to the wrong position in the sentence. In the latter part, you will get to know this too. So first, let us know about misplaced modifier. So it is a word, phrase, or clause that is inappropriately separated from the word it's supposed to modify or describe. It can cause the sentence sounds hilarious or confusing. Example, heavily. It is raining. So the sample above infers that the rain is heavy. In order to fix it, you will just move the modifier in a more appropriate position within the sentence. So let's move the modifier. So it is raining heavily. So now it is more appropriate, pleasing to hear, and at the same time it's grammatically correct. So there are several kinds of misplaced modifier. The misplaced adjectives. So these are adjectives that incorrectly separated from the nouns they modified and always changed meaning. So for example, the woman hath hot bath of water on the bathtub. So it is so confusing, right? So in order to fix the error through placing the adjective next to the noun it modifies, so the revision is the woman bathed the hot water in the bathtub. So second, placements of adverbs can change the content in the sentences. It may say something logical but little variation from the sentences. It has correctness but depends on the writer's mind. However, misplacing an adverb not only modifies the intended meaning but also establish a sentence whose meaning is unlikely or completely absorbed. So, for example, we run to the office hurriedly. So, to correct it, we hurriedly run to the office. So, the second sentence shows correctness of grammar and not completely ridiculous. Third, misplaced phrases and clauses. This may cause a sentence to sound awkward and builds an unintended meaning that does not make sense. So, for example, my friend was referred to the quack doctor with stomach pains. So, to have a more accurate sentence structure, this is how it goes. My friend with stomach pains was referred to a quack doctor. It's more pleasing to hear, right? So it has the same process with the first two varieties of misplaced modifier, wherein you will have to position the phrases and clauses into its appropriate position where it is supposed to modify. Now, let's talk about the dangling modifier. So dangling modifier is also a phrase or a clause which does not obtain a clear and logical in which it is related to the word or words that it modifies. Note to remember, dissimilar to misplaced modifier, dangling modifier cannot be fixed by just moving it to the different positions within the sentence. And another is usually it appears at the preceding part of the sentence but can also be due at the end part. So for example, incorrect. Walking to Mactan Bridge, life seems very relaxing. So the second sentence is Ivan was walking to Mactan Bridge, life seems very relaxing. So in the first sentence, we left hanging. The readers will wonder who is walking at the Mactan Bridge. So, obviously, it allows the reader left hanging and wondering who was walking at the bridge. So, the correct sentence allows us to be complete, or in other words, the second sentence obtain a complete thought. So we have two methods in fixing dangling modifier. First method is leave the modifier as it is or do not alter the modifier. Next is modifying the main part of the sentence in order for it to begin with the terms it's supposed to modify. For example, loving the person, a mistake that cannot be took back. So to correct this, loving the wrong person, a mistake that I can't be able to took back. So it is already corrected in the second sentence. Method 2. Alter the Dagling modifier phrase to a subordinating clause, formulating subject and verb. Second, leave the rest of the sentence as it is, meaning do not touch or distort any part of the sentence except to the Dagling modifier. For example, I go to school, my father go to his office. So it is not that really appealing, right, or correct. So in order to correct this, we will use subordinating clause. So when I go to school, my father goes to his office. So it is more lively, right? So those are the misplaced and Dagling modifier. So we are down with our paragraph structure. So before we tackle what is a paragraph structure, let us first define what is a paragraph. So a paragraph contains one main idea by a series of related sentences. It usually comprises 250 words and consists of 5 to 6 sentences. Even if it depends on the objectives of the paragraph and the length of the piece you are writing. So furthermore, a paragraph also follows a certain structure, and this is called a paragraph structure. So a paragraph, in order to easily comprehend a paragraph structure, there are 3 sections: the beginning, the middle, and the end. So first, let us talk about the topic sentence or the beginning. So it is the most crucial in establishing a powerful and alluring essay. This will serve as a gateway to attract the readers. That at this part you need to infer your idea evidently. So in other words, this is the introduction of your paragraph. So next, supporting sentence. So supporting sentence is the middle part of the paragraph. Here, it enables the writer to expound his or her ideas and thoughts further. It is the part where you present facts and evidence to have a strong argument or presentation. So supporting sentences is the body of your essay. Last part is the concluding sentence, so also known as the end part of the paragraphs. In this section, you will again state or link the main idea from the topic sentence. It gathers the overall point of view of the writer regarding the topic she or he is writing about. So this is the conclusion of your essay or paragraph. So there are 4 elements in order for you to have a powerful and content-wise paragraph. First element is unity. It is the unison of ideas can attract readers and those writers as well. Having this element has so much to do with your paragraph since it enables you to procure details and discussion. Second element is order. For the word order, it means organization. It talks about how the writers organize its ideas. This element helps the reader grasp at the meaning and avoid confusions to the readers. Third element is coherence. So this is the quality of a paragraph where it allows the readers to understand more the paragraph itself. It includes the word choice since it serves as the bridges in order to connect with other sentences. Fourth element is completeness. So if this element is present in your paragraph, meaning to say it is well cultivated. It possesses a sufficient facts and evidence that will support the main idea, then finally your paragraph is now complete. So those are the 4 elements, namely unity, order, coherence, and completeness in order for you aspiring writers to have a powerful and content-wise paragraph.